trying to find out what happened.
Okay, wasn't you just talking to her? Can she provide all them information to you?
Well, let me ask you this. I was just talking to her. What if she told me that you beat the out of her and you jumped on top of her and started punching her in the face? Should I just go ahead and take that as...
Okay, but don't you know...
It's your side of the story. Give your side.
All these prescriptions, but you want to be great. Being great is really pushing the envelope. You know what I'm saying?
Gervonta Tank Davis has finally spoken out after reports of his arrest and the cancellation of his fight with Jake Paul. Davis is now facing a new civil lawsuit accusing him of serious domestic violence. His team and coach have shared only short public comments so far, and Jake Paul's November 14th event is in trouble as promoters look into the situation.
He's a lightweight, so by all means, if they make a few quid and nobody gets hurt, then great. But I certainly wouldn't be paying a penny to watch it. I think it's just absolutely ridiculous, farcical. Who wants to watch an exhibition? Gervonta Davis is in his prime years. Why is he wasting his time? Why is he having a rematch with the fella he got a draw with? Why is he not fighting? Why is he not going up a weight and fighting Lopez and Garcias and them fighters? Why is he fighting Jake Paul in an exhibition? I get the money's great, but he's in the prime years. This is his best year. This is where he can become... Maybe you don't want to be an all-time great. Maybe you don't want to do it.
A civil lawsuit filed in Miami-Dade accuses Davis of battery, aggravated battery, false imprisonment, kidnapping, and causing emotional distress. If proven true, these claims could damage both his career and reputation. For now, it remains a civil case. No new criminal charges have been filed yet in connection with this complaint.
WBC lightweight world champion Gervonta Tank Davis was arrested earlier this week for a closed fist slapping his daughter's mother. What's a closed fist slap? Is it like this? Bro, you can't be closed fist slapping women. You can't be slapping women at all. But don't you know your hand is like Thor's hammer? Bro, you can go to jail for even flicking somebody, man. Don't you got a fight coming up? Or are you trying to ruin your career?
At the moment, Davis hasn't made a full public statement about his side of the story. His coach said that Davis is doing fine and that they're still figuring things out. It was a short response meant to keep him out of the spotlight while his legal and promotional teams handle the issue. Jake Paul's Most Valuable Promotions confirmed that they've started an internal investigation. Their statement said they don't tolerate violence and will decide what to do next. After reviewing everything, the fight is technically still listed on the schedule but could be postponed or canceled, depending on what the investigation shows. Sources now say the November 14th event is probably canceled, not just delayed. Reporter Dame Mara wrote on X that she's 80% sure it's off for now. The fight was first planned for Atlanta's State Farm Arena, but later moved to Miami. A perfect mix for modern boxing hype, a social media star versus a pro fighter.
When a fairly novice Jake Paul made a wish list of future opponents, and right in the middle of that list was Gervonta Tank Davis. Many laughed at the time, and some still can't believe we're here. But these two young men are the face of boxing for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They are the two biggest boxers in America, and they are putting it all on the line. One has the speed, the skill, the accuracy, and the one-punch knockout power. The other has the size, the force, and the unbreakable confidence to make this must-see Netflix. The size difference is...
The fight's setup made things even more interesting. Davis, a lightweight champion who usually fights around 135 to 140 pounds, was set to face Jake Paul, who fights near the cruiserweight limit. The press conference confirmed the fight would have a 195-pound limit and 12-ounce gloves. Davis questioned the rules, pointing out the size difference and unusual setup. But the unique mix of spectacle and sport made it one of the most anticipated fights of the year.
Watch is Tank Davis versus Jake Paul. I want Tank Davis to knock his block off. I'm sick of the Paul brothers, both of them. I can't stand either one of them. And I know I'll get pounded with emails. You're just jealous. No, I'm not jealous of them. I could care less how much money they make. I don't like their attitude. I don't like the way they conduct themselves. I don't like the way they...
Many boxing fans online have grown critical of Gervonta Davis, saying he's avoiding top fighters like Shocker Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez in favor of a big money fight with Jake Paul. They believe his choices are being driven more by profit than by the challenge of competition.
He wasn't gonna ever fight no Shakur Stevenson, no Keyshawn Davis, no Teofimo Lopez, no none of them dudes. You know what I'm talking about? We gotta think and look at Tank Davis's whole career. He done made some bread, but at the end of the day, all that bread that he made, when it's all said and done, he ain't gonna get no respect from his peers, because we gonna look down his resume and we gonna be like, he was trash, he was some trash, he was some trash, he was all right, but he was never like that. He was okay. He was some trash, he was some trash.
Originally, Davis was supposed to have a rematch with Roach after their first fight ended in a controversial draw. The plan was to settle that score and strengthen his legacy. But once the chance to fight Jake Paul came up, with a much bigger payday and global attention, his team changed direction. Reports claim Davis could make around $50 million from the Paul fight, while some like Stephen A. Smith didn't fully criticize the move. They pointed out that today's boxers often chase money over legacy. Fights that define greatness now take a backseat to crossover events that bring massive pay-per-view numbers. For Davis, this fight is about more than boxing skills. It's about reaching an audience far beyond traditional fans.
He's in a division where he's got killers all in his division. You know, Shakur, Haney, who's 147. You know, you look at Tio, for example, Keyshawn, and then you choose to fight someone like Paul. Surely that's a concern when you do look at it like that.
Yeah, but again, it's the world we're in. If you can get a huge amount of money to fight someone who's never boxed really before, you're going to do it. You know, Floyd Mayweather boxed Logan Paul with a huge weight disparity.
He was done by then. He was done. Like, this is an active world champion.
But it's the world we're in.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. You know, when it comes down to it. It's just like Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather. Two completely different sports. Was the biggest pay-per-view in recent times, wasn't it? Maybe if ever.
Those are like different comparisons, though, if you think about it. Do you not like?
Yeah, but the sport's in a wild place, isn't it? That's just, like, I'm just like the reality of where we are, you know. And I can't really say much when we're talking about Jake Paul fighting Anthony Joshua at the same time.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think Tank should get stripped of his title?
Yeah, I think anyone who, just in general, doesn't defend their title to do something else should get stripped, because it shouldn't hold the belts up. You know, in any, like, I think that should be the reality in anything. You know, if you're not going to defend your belts, or you're not defending, sometimes there's the rules. Obviously, if you fight for a belt at a higher weight, you can retain the belt until there. But if you're not, don't have intention of defending the belts, you shouldn't hold the belts up. People should get the opportunity to fight for them.
What happened with the failed negotiations between AJ and Jake Paul?
I think anything's still possible. That was always discussed for next year. You know, this fight's November, early part of next year.
Former world champion Carl Froch didn't hold back, calling the whole situation a joke. He said talks for a Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight were almost complete, but Paul instead chose to face Davis, a fighter half his size. Froch said this proves Jake is chasing publicity, not real challenges. Many boxing insiders agree that Paul picks his opponents carefully to create buzz, while minimizing danger. Facing Joshua would have been a real test, but fighting Davis turns it into a spectacle.
But the fight against Jake Paul ain't going to happen anyway. It ain't going to happen. We can all believe it. Jake Paul.
Eddie Hearn said it's 99% done.
Because you know what? And Jake Paul's done a great job in hustling Eddie. Yeah. He's going to get so either Eddie's in on it, or he's like this young man hustling. Yeah. And so the kids kidded the kidders.
Well, listen, we've had a chat, we've caught up. We'll have another chat as well in a...
I'm going to do some sunbathing, man.
Days, bit of sunbathing. Top up the town.
Yes, I baby.
As well.
Black is the number.
Let us know in the comments below who you think wins the fight and what Anthony Joshua should be doing next. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comments below. This has been another episode of Froch on Fighting. We've got the main man here, Johnny Nelson, a.k.a.
Blickman.
We'll see. He said it, not me. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Just here at Los Naranjos in Viva, España, and I found out that Gervonta Davis is now fighting Jake Paul. So Jake Paul was supposed to be fighting AJ. Eddie Hearn announced 99% done, which we've just spoke about. What next for AJ? Potentially Jake Paul. But it now looks like that Jake Paul is fighting one of Anthony Joshua's legs. He's fighting Gervonta Davis, somebody who's a quarter of his size. I don't even know what's going on. Has Eddie Hearn been...
Meanwhile, Nikiza Baydarian, co-founder of Most Valuable Promotions, dismissed worries about Jake Paul's size advantage. He said size won't decide the fight when facing someone as skilled as Davis. Darian explained that the heavier weight limit was only needed because Jake is still learning. He also revealed that the Paul versus Davis fight wasn't last minute. It was planned after a potential Canelo Alvarez match fell through. According to him, Davis had been wanting this fight for years, and when the Canelo option disappeared, the path to Tank opened up.
Tank are gonna happen November 14th.
Whatever weight they want, man, they're talking about it, and whatever it is, it's gonna be a definitive outcome. People can talk about pro, exhibition. We're gonna make sure this is as real as it's real.
Why was it, just out of curiosity, why is it not a professional bout and why is it an exhibition? Because I'm sure Jake would have taken the professional bout.
Nothing's been communicated as yet in terms of what it is, right? Similar to, if you remember with Paul Tyson, when we announced it, we didn't have the weight, we didn't have the rules, particularly in terms of the number of rounds, the minutes, the gloves. It's gonna be the same thing here.
Gotcha. Can you just offer us any insight as to how these negotiations went? The reason I ask is because I remember back in March, I was at Tank's fight, and after his fight in his press conference, he was asked, next opponent. He said, well, my next opponent might have been in my locker room tonight, and people asked him, was it Jake? He made reference, he made allusion to. Has this been an ongoing thing, and has it ever, been at a point where it wasn't gonna happen and came back, or was this always the plan?
Always been the plan for Jake to fight Tank once Canelo didn't happen. And to Tank's credit, he's a real bad dude, and he's been calling out Jake for 3 years. And people, it's funny how now they're saying size matters, Jake is big, when for so long it's been Tank would kill Jake Paul.
Darian also admitted that Jake Paul is bigger, taller, and has longer reach than Davis. But he believes Davis's skill and experience easily outweigh the size difference. Tank has been a world-class boxer for over a decade with titles, knockouts, and elite ring IQ. He's known for his quickness, timing, and power across different styles. Jake Paul, though improving, hasn't yet faced anyone close to Davis's level.
Obvious, but so is the skill and experience difference. One man has been doing this for 23 years, since the age of 7. The other picked up the sport 5 years ago and has virtually no amateur experience. So the size difference is what makes this plausible. The king of the jungle here is Tank Davis. He is the lion taking on the young elephant that is Jake Paul. The lion is looking at me like he's about to eat me. The lion is fast, he's fierce, and he's fatal when he strikes. But the young elephant is big, powerful, and hard to knock down. And come Friday, November 14th, the jungle will be set in tropical Miami, Florida, and the world will...
On the other hand, critics like Joe Rogan admit that Jake Paul has helped attract younger fans to boxing. Rogan says Jake brings hype and interest that promoters often fail to create, but he questions if Jake is ready for a true elite fighter still in their prime. Jake's biggest wins have come against older or retired athletes. Davis, by contrast, represents elite speed, knockout power, and top-tier experience. Rogan respects Jake's courage, but believes this fight will finally show the difference between a real world-class boxer and an internet-built star.
It's like, what if Jake Paul knocks one of them out? Like, what if you get a guy that, hasn't been tested and maybe has some promise and maybe gets wrapped up in the hype and maybe gets a little nervous, and this is his first chance at a big show, and Jake Paul can crack.
Yeah.
100%. That knockout of Tyron Woodley is legit as fuck. He can crack.
But Eddie's point in that interview, and I think the point that just about every boxing aficionado would say, is that
Former world champion and analyst Paulie Malignaggi said he never expected this matchup. The announcement surprised him and the boxing world. Jake Paul has faced unusual opponents before, but fighting a lightweight like Davis was still shocking. He called it an unpredictable move, showing how far Jake is willing to go for attention. Malignaggi said that despite Jake's size advantage, Davis's experience and skill set him apart. He reminded fans that Davis's career is legendary and his accomplishments have made a lasting impact on boxing.
Lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. Yeah. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. Davis, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you, you can clinch. against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch a lightweight. Can he drop a heavyweight? You know, there's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks
the answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah. But if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion, multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, you know, what's the look? What's the feel? On the inside, as boxers, me and, you know, Chris Algieri, the champ, even you, Jimmy, you have fight experience. So we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you, you're probably going down if you're a small guy, if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing, and I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn?
However, one of Jake Paul's former sparring partners gave a blunt opinion that Gervonta Davis hits far too hard for Jake to handle. He said Jake may feel confident because he's beaten MMA fighters and older boxers, but that won't help against Tank. He described Davis's punches as damaging, not just scoring points. He believes Jake will soon realize he's stepped into a level of danger he's never faced before. While many admire Jake's willingness to take risks, this insider said every risk has a limit, and Gervonta Davis is that limit.
Like every single time, you know, people said that Jake would get finished or he would lose a fight, he obviously proved everybody wrong. But I genuinely believe this time, I think that, you know, with Gervonta's boxing IQ and him having Jake come down a little bit in weight, I think Gervonta will beat him, honestly. I think Gervonta will hurt him. I think he'll just use IQ. He'll tire him out a little bit. And, you know, I think he'll land. You know, Gervonta knows how to touch his opponents. But it's interesting because when Floyd fought Logan, the size really made a big, you know, impact. And you saw Floyd struggle, you know, against a big, you know, Ohio corn-fed, you know, wrestling strong dude. And, you know, I've sparred Jake and Logan before, and, you know, they train hard.
You're picking Tank by knockout?
Look, I sparred them years ago. They're much.
UFC legend Daniel Cormier, now a boxing analyst, shared his own view on Jake Paul's rise. He said Jake's Netflix fight with Mike Tyson created a new type of sports entertainment. While people still call Jake a social media celebrity, Cormier praised his growing skills, hard training, and willingness to take real risks. He said Jake is changing how boxing connects with mainstream audiences, and that itself is a form.
Twice, big numbers. Jake Paul fought against Tommy Fury, big numbers. Jake Paul, who I believe, and I have told you guys this time and time again, he's much better than people give him credit for. One, Jake Paul is not an amateur fighter, like some try to say. Jake Paul has money, so Jake Paul is getting trained by the best boxing coaches that money can buy. He's full-time boxing. There are a lot of people that say he may do some other stuff. I don't know who he was going to fight that was saying that he was juiced up and he was ignoring him. Or was it Logan Paul? One of them. But at the end of the day, this kid's training to be the best fighter in the world, or the best as he can be, and he understands what losing would do to the perception of who he is in fighting. We were yelling so much about him fighting someone. Fight somebody your size. Fight somebody, a real boxer. Stop fighting MMA guys. There were so many things that people were mad about in regards to his level of competition and the people he was competing against. Well, today we learned that Jake Paul has his next opponent. His next opponent is by far the most